myself during the election, actually right before the election, I put out a report, and two of my reporters did really good work looking into Mark Carney's daughter, Sasha Carney,
Right.
who is actually
That's a legit story.
who is actually, she doesn't identify as a daughter anymore because she has transed. And so the idea that our prime minister allowed his own daughter to be trans as a teenager, she went to the discredited Tavistock clinic. She wrote about it, right? It wasn't like we went into her diary.
She's a public activist. That's why it's a legit story, because she made it public.
Right, like the legacy media treated it like we went in and stole her diary or something and published her secret writing. She's an activist. She's writing essays about it and talking about a double mastectomy and all this kind of stuff, right? And so it's like, you know what? Like the prime minister allowed his own daughter to do that. And I think that's in the public interest. I think Canadians deserve to know. I stand by that story. I stand by the report. Yes. It's important. And yes, it's personal. Maybe I would have, going back, maybe I would have changed the headline or the way that we presented the story. But still, I think it's in public interest to know that our prime minister went down that rabbit hole and allowed his own family member to do something like that. And I think it's unfortunate that the Conservatives sort of felt the need to denounce me for that report. But the thing, just to go back to your question, when I put out that report, the legacy media really paid attention, and they did it to totally discredit me. Like, how dare you? In Canada, we never talk about politicians' families and all this kind of stuff, which, maybe it's a fair point, except for that's not true. They go after Anna Polyev, Pierre Poilievre's wife, all the time. They used to go after Stephen Harper for the way that he treated his children. Remember when he gave his son Ben a handshake on the way to school? And that was, the top news story in the country. Of course, they go after politicians' families. But when I did it, it was totally off unacceptable and out of bounds. And they condemned me from the highest rooftop for that. And so that's when they pay attention to us, when they're outraged over something that we report. Yeah.
There's a real clubbiness to it. I mean, there's something on CBC called the At Issue panel. And it's normally Rosemary Barton in Ottawa, Andrew Coyne in Toronto, Althea Raj, who was Trudeau's authorized biographer in Ottawa, and another lady whose name
Chantal
Hébert from Montreal. It's been that same, and they're starting to resemble each other. It's like old married couples that start to look like each other. I think these 3 or 4 of them are starting, in my mind, they're all blending together. And they haven't, it's like a pond that hasn't had fresh water coming into it in 20 years. And just geographically, there's just like nothing west of Toronto, but of course, the entire ideological spectrum from A to B, like it's just, I mean, I don't know how many people watch that, but my theory is they only care about one person watching it, the prime minister. And if it's okay by him, it's okay by CBC. I don't know. I just, like, surely there's someone younger, someone newer, someone representing, like, I don't know. You have Trudeau's literal biographer on the panel, but the closest thing you get to a conservative is Andrew Coyne, who rages against Pierre Poilievre every week.
Well, and calls me far right, calls you far right. Yeah. I mean, to him, he's so far to the left that anyone to his right is far right. So it's so absurd.
I don't know. It's just, I feel like they're stuck in amber. You know what I mean? Like a bug that was caught in the sap and it was petrified, and that nothing's changed over there. And nothing will change as long as they can convince Mark Carney, like they convinced Trudeau, that they will be worth their weight politically. I mean, when you think about CTV, it's the same way. I read Bell Canada's annual report. That's a huge company. And the annual report was, I don't know, I'm going to guess 50 pages long. They didn't even have one page about CTV News. They had like a paragraph. It's not important to them as a business, as a mission. They're all about the internet and cell phones. It's clear to me that the only reason Bell Canada subsidizes CTV News is as a political tool to do favors for the regime, because they're such a regulated company. I don't know. I look at all the regulated TV. I look at all the subsidized newspapers, and I think they're not actually about selling eyeballs to advertisers or selling news to consumers. They're about selling political massaging of the truth to Justin Trudeau or now Mark Carney. Like, it's not what you think. What you think is for sale is not what's for sale. It's like Facebook. You are for sale. I think that's the modern mainstream media. You are being politicized year round. I don't know. I'm rambling on a little bit, but I think that's the only reason these panels make sense.
Yeah, I think you've got you kind of hit the nail on the head there, right? It's like it exists just to make them feel important, that they have access to the prime minister and that they can have him on the show, and that the prime minister then feels important because he gets invited on the show, and they get to promote the ministers, and it's all just one big,
And they have lobbyists on. They call them strategists.
Yeah.
They're lobbyists, and they don't disclose who they're lobbying for. It's crazy.
Right. No, this is kind of like the problem with Canada in a nutshell, right? It's like there's these few kind of powerful families and powerful people that kind of control everything, and everyone just kind of does as they're told. And the elite class isn't very elite. They're not very creative or imaginative or smart. They just kind of do what they've always done without the need to change. And I think that this is the major problem in the Canadian economy as well, is that they just don't want to innovate. They don't want to change. They don't want to move forward. You can talk about pipelines. You can talk about resource development. You can talk about the future of the country, and just sort of lack of productivity. The idea that we have to have mass immigration just to grow the economy. Canadians don't want to have kids, so they have to have import third world in here to replace them all. There's so many problems, and you look at the ruling class, you think these people, they don't really have what it takes to get us out of this. And I think that's why what we do is so important, because we shine a light on it all and help people make sense of it, that it doesn't have to be that way, that you can have startups and you can have competition, you can have other voices and other people out there doing this thing. We could probably actually do it better than they can.